IVM.
Hi everybody, just wanted to ask everyone for a quick favor. We're running a brand survey right now and would really appreciate it if you could let us know what you think about the advertising on IVM. Go to ivmpodcast.com/survey and do let us know. As part of this, we'll be selecting 10 random participants and sending them some IVM swag, so do fill out those surveys.
Hello and welcome to the Habit Coach podcast. I am Ashdin Doctor, your habit coach. And today we're going to have a very interesting discussion on the things that we put in our mouth. You know, I keep talking about how important food is. And this keeps reminding me of this one line that my grandmother used to use all the time. And because it was my grandmother and you never really listen to what your grandparents say and what your parents say, you never took it seriously. She used to say that you are what you eat. And then much later on in life did the penny actually drop. And I suddenly realized saying that yes, every single part of me, every little cell of me was not there when I was born. So where did it come from? So it must have come from the food that I've eaten. And that's when you start asking yourself, are you putting good quality things in your mouth? Because that's the quality of the body that you're going to have. Like I keep joking saying, where do you want potato chips to end up in your body? Like which part of your body do you want to be made up of potato chips? So understanding food, understanding the quality of food is extremely important. And today with us, we have a very special guest. We have Avinash from Deep Rooted, who's going to take us through all these ideas about food, the quality of food, and how we should start thinking about it. So Avinash, welcome to the Habit Coach podcast.
Hey, hi everyone. Happy to be here and spend some time sharing what we see in the great journey of food.
Lovely. You know, Avinash, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so born and brought up in Bangalore, engineer MBA by educational background, went through the usual career path that an engineer does. Sometime 3 years back, actually, along with three other childhood friends, all of whom studied in the same school together. Right, we got together to start this venture called Deep Rooted, as it's known today. Again, the idea culminated from many brainstorming sessions that we did. One of the co-founders was managing a coffee estate. The idea was to do something around that, but we navigated our way into, growing high quality greens right outside Bangalore. And started marketing it to a few fine dining outlets and internet kitchens. And that has evolved today into a brand that is known for fresh, clean, contamination-free fruits and vegetables being directly sold to end consumers on our platform across 2 cities. That is a quick introduction about myself and what we are doing at Deep Rooted.
So why did you think of starting and getting down into this path on clean? Was there like a personal connect to the kind of food that you ate? Was there an aha moment that happened?
Again, I think we organically evolved. I wish there was a great story that it was an aha moment that 4 of us in a cafe sort of brainstormed into growing fresh, clean, contamination-free produce. No, I think it emanated from both inside out, what we were trying to do when we got our hands literally dirty to get into farming. At the same time, the feedback that we were hearing from the customers and the consumers on the kind of challenges that they see when it comes to quality, especially in highly perishable fruits and vegetables, right? So if you take an average year, it has 4 seasons. So the availability, the quality, and the consistency of both of those varies throughout the year. Right, so great produce at low prices for 3 to 4 months a year, but the remainder of the year, even if someone is willing to pay a high price, right, the quality and the availability is not consistent, right? So how do we sort of structurally fix this problem in a very India specific context where demand side today is extremely mature and nuanced, right? Like consumers in general and people like you and me, eating clean, staying healthy is a cornerstone of living today, right? People today are extremely conscious about, as you rightly said, you are what you eat, right? So people are extremely conscious about that. And when it comes to perishable fruits and vegetables, it's not just about where the produce is coming from, which is also very important and it matters, but it's also about how it is grown, right? I mean, for us, bringing that aspect together, right? The consumer today is ready to take in an offering which promises fresh, clean, contamination-free fruits and vegetables. but it's about actually structurally leveraging the Indian supply side ecosystem of small landhold farmers. How do we make them an integral and core part of this supply chain and work this end to end so that both sides of the supply chain or ecosystem, so to speak, are happy and have their sort of problems met, right? So it happened over about 6 to 9 months when actually we were in our regular day jobs and farming was almost a side venture. We set up our own 1 acre farm. It was a hydroponic farm, which means we were growing it in a soilless environment. The ability to grow irrespective of the kind of season it is and maintain a good productivity and yield from a farm perspective, but quality from a consumer perspective. That's how our journey began, right? And the proof of the pudding for us was consumers or customers rather pretty much immediately validating that the quality distinctively stood out from whatever was available or whatever channels that they were using, but also the fact that we were able to do that consistently irrespective of season over the 6 to 7 months meant that there is a structural way to go about fixing the problem of perishable supply chain at the core of it. But at a very high level, it's about ensuring that you build a traceable, honest, sincere supply chain right from the farm in what seeds you use, how do you grow the produce in a contamination-free manner without spraying chemicals, and how do you ensure that that freshness and quality at the farm also sort of translates when it reaches a consumer's doorstep, right? So the demand side in general today is extremely mature and nuanced and is asking a lot of questions on the supply side across most other categories of life. If you see electronics, fashion, most of those have been addressed. When it comes to groceries, and within groceries, especially fruits and vegetables, is where the supply side maturity has to ramp up, and that's the journey that we are on.
Avinash, more than the supply side, I want to spend time talking about it from a consumer's point of view, right?
Yep.
Because I went down this whole rabbit hole of trying to figure out what is the best quality of everything that I could start eating, and it is a rabbit hole. It is completely unidentifiable. Like people say, "Chalo, Ashton, you should eat seasonal fruits and vegetables." Great,
Yeah.
but how do I know what's in season when? Right? How do I know this is seasonal? This is not seasonal. This was like ages ago. This is something that is new. And you spoke a lot about these various things, and I want to touch upon a few of these. One is season, the second
Yep.
is quality, the
Yep.
third is the supply chain, right? And understanding what is the way that you're doing it with soil, hydroponics. Let's talk about that as well. But first, let's talk about seasons and foods, like
Sure.
fruits and vegetables. How do people start understanding this aspect of seasonality?
Yeah, so I think if you look at broadly fruits and vegetables, on an average, consumers' consumption of vegetables fairly tends to remain predictable or fairly standard, irrespective of the time of the year. Yes, I mean, there are seasonal vegetables as well, which you want to leverage on, which you want to enjoy as a delicacy, definitely. But most of the mainstream vegetable consumption is fairly standard. You need your dosage of greens, you need your dosage of staples, you need your cucumbers, you need your gourds. And most of those vegetables, by the way, are fairly available throughout the year. It's a different challenge that at certain times in a year, especially during heavy monsoon, if cultivation is being done in open field, the quality may be susceptible, the availability may be susceptible, but largely at its core, most of these are throughout the year available vegetables, majority of them, right?
Which ones are the ones that you don't need to worry about seasonal? So like if you can list a few, then we'll just put it in our
Like,
mind
for
as well.
example, potato and onion, right? I mean, it's available throughout the year, but are they grown throughout the year? No, it is grown in select parts of the year. And you use cold storages because they're non-perishable, so to speak, so they last longer. You use cold storages, and then for the remainder of the year, when it's a non-cultivation season, it goes out of the cold storages and goes through the traditional supply chain and reaches the consumer, right? Your greens, for example, during winter, right, you get excellent quality greens because the climate is conducive for greens to grow, largely irrespective of where you're growing. I'm taking away the nuances of a farmer being competent and things like that, but from just an external climate weather point of view, greens, you can grow excellent quality in winter. Now, especially in Bangalore, now that the rains have started, if someone is dependent only on open field cultivation, right, you'll not be able to guarantee quality or availability. So there are a set of SKUs like this, especially greens, which we solve for by growing in greenhouses or a hydroponic environment, right, where we are largely abstracting the external weather and taking it out of the equation and delivering to the consumer how they would get greens, let's say, during the best part of the year if it was grown in open field, right? Likewise, most crops which are grown in open field during peak summer or during peak monsoon tends to see huge vulnerability in terms of production quality,
What would
pest
these be like?
infestation, and things like that. All of your gourds, right? Even carrots during monsoon is extremely tricky. Your beans and lady's finger, right? So most of these crops, they go through slight peaks and troughs in terms of quality and availability for a large set of these core staples, right? Which are perishable, which means if you leave it on a kitchen table, it will not last for more than 2 days. In some cases, even less than that, right? So for a large set of these vegetables is what we are trying to abstract and make whether a lesser factor you cannot remove definitely, and try and make the cultivation more deterministic and predictable, uh, thereby ensuring that end consumer has the availability throughout the year, and that availability is also at the right quality and it being grown in a contamination free manner. Fruits, on the other hand, are a different beast. Every consumer, on a weekly basis, if we look at our consumers' consumption pattern, as I said, vegetables tend to be fairly repeated, right? You want to have your tomatoes, you will buy a potato, you will buy an onion, you will buy a beans, you will buy a gourds, you will buy greens, right? Fruits is where we see variety, and seasonality is extremely important from a consumer point of view, right? Fruits tend to be high value produce, right? Fruits, most of them tend to be seasonal, although, things like apple, which maybe 10-15 years when we were growing up, tended to be available only at a certain points in the year, but nowadays apple is practically available throughout the year, right? So you have seasonal fruits like stone fruits, be it lychee, rambutan, logan. You have strawberries and blueberries, which are available only during peak winter. Right? You have mangoes, obviously, which are the king of fruits, available only during summer, right? So fruits inherently are extremely seasonal. Fruits are also one where, from a consumer viewpoint, tends to seek variety. And therefore, it is imperative that at those points in the season, you have the fruits available to the consumer because they're actually seeking out consciously for those. Like vegetable shopping may tend to happen at a subconscious level, largely. Fruit happens at a very conscious level because it is more diverse, the tastes are different, the health benefits that it brings in are different, and inherently it is also a seasonal produce.
But like Avinash, there was this one incident that has burnt its memory in my brain. Okay, I've once gone for a meeting and I carried my little lunch dabba, finished my lunch, and there was an apple along with it. One of those Chinese Christmas apple things. And I had come back home, parked the car, and had forgotten about the bag in the car. I drove all over the city for the next 2 weeks. I hadn't touched the bag. 2 weeks that apple was in my car. After that, I took it out and I cut it open, and it was exactly like it was 2 weeks ago. Right?
Wow.
There was no perishableness to that apple at all. What is going on here?
You've had a unique experience, right? I mean, it's not very common, honestly. Yes, I mean, shelf life. Basically, what you're talking about is shelf life, right? I mean, how long can the produce last without it getting degraded in terms of quality, becoming soft, or starting to get composted from the inside, right? So, shelf life is a function of many different things, starting from which seed it was used to sow the variant, how was it grown, right? What were the climatic conditions, or how was it grown in general? How was the crop taken care during the entire life cycle? When was the produce harvested, right? Like, I mean, even the time of the harvest actually matters. And then how was it transported from the farm to your doorstep? And usually it goes through multiple exchange of hands, right? I mean, from a farmer to an average consumer, there will be anywhere between 5 to 6 exchange of hands of the produce. And at each exchange of hands, the shelf life and the freshness and the quality starts sort of deteriorating, right? And therefore, most of the times when you walk into a modern trade store in the evening, the greens don't tend to be the freshest because it would have been harvested practically 24 to 36 hours back, right? The shelf life and the freshness depends on a multitude of factors. What you've seen, honestly, could be an outlier experience, but a lot of the supply chain solutions that are being thought through today is exactly to do that. I mean, everybody claims farm to fork today, but very few people are doing it in the right spirit of farm to fork in order to ensure, an apple that you bought 4 days back continues to remain as fresh, as red, as crunchy as it would be if you were to, let's say, pluck it out of a tree and eat it, right? So I think that.
Are there processes taking place to these vegetables and fruits and things like that? What are the kinds of things that are currently happening in the market?
Yeah, so in general, mostly in fruits, right? I think most fruits, or actually quite a subset of fruits, tend to undergo some sort of pre-cooling, some sort of post-harvest processes, right? Before it actually reaches the consumer, right? Like a banana is harvested at a certain yellow tinge, and within 3 hours of harvest, it goes into a pre-cooling chamber, which is maintained at a certain temperature. It remains there for a certain duration, post which, it is removed out and then it is sent to the consumer. So a banana that you get will be adequately ripe, and that means it has gone through 3-4 steps of post-harvest, pre-delivery steps, right? Even for apple, there is natural waxing, right? In order to preserve the shine of the apple, in order to preserve or in order to ensure that the apple doesn't become softer during crunch during the transit time, because apple is a high altitude fruit. It cannot be grown even in like an Ooty or something. It has to be Shimla and beyond, right? And thanks to global warming, by the way, the average height or the altitude at which apple is growing is only going up over time. I think there was a lovely article in Live Mint on what is happening on that front, right? So most fruits which go through these long distance transportations, right, because they can only be grown in select regions or climatic zones, tend to have a fairly well-defined process of what should happen immediately post-harvest. Like the example I took of banana or an apple or even mangoes, actually, right? I mean, you need to preserve it in a certain temperature range so that it doesn't become too soft or it doesn't overripe. And that begins right from the farm at what stage you harvest. Too early, maybe some fruits, by the way, you cannot ripen it post harvest. It has to ripen on the plant and at a certain stage, which means by the time you get it, it is ready for consumption. So everything
Blueberries, for
begins at the.
example.
Yes, exactly. Right. So it begins right at the farm where you harvest, at what stage you harvest, and depending on the fruit, what steps you ensure, and most of them would involve some sort of pre-cooling, keeping it in a certain, not exposing it over a certain time range, and then some fruits go through a ripening process within a chamber, and then it gets delivered to the consumer. So a lot of these activities traditionally was happening through the unorganized sector, where there's lack of transparency, visibility into what was being used to ripen, how was it handled. Waxes in apple is always a common thing that you're concerned about as to what sort of wax they're using, even though the FSSAI guidelines in India mandates the use of a certain wax. It's COVID times, right? So so yeah. So even though there are legislations and regulations on all of that, given the sort of raw nature of the supply side ecosystem, a lot of the people are concerned because they don't know behind the scenes of what is happening. So a lot of the activities in agri-tech space today is to sort of break that clutter and bring in visibility deep into the supply so that consumers are comfortable in the choices that they are doing. and in knowing how it was grown, or yeah.
Before going ahead, we'll take a quick break.
Hey everybody, it's been a great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Storytellers and Storytellers, Vineet is joined by Megha Rao, poet and visual artist. She shares her inspiration, her process, and the challenges around expressing the beauty and anguish of being a young woman. On Cyrus Says, Cyrus is joined by author and historian Manu Pillai. They talk about all of Manu's amazing books, including his latest, False Allies. Rushina Munshal Gildayal joins Sadaf and Archita Nankari. They discuss recipes from the mountain and discuss the cuisine of Uttarakhand. For all the last-minute ninjas out there, on Say No to Drama, Chitna calls out the habits you need to manage your time better. On Simplified, Chuck, Naren, Tony, and Shrike discover how rare diseases are treated with molecular biologist Bertie Ashley. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any other show for that matter, please do tell a friend. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors on the network this week, Cred, Bank of Baroda, Quarter, CoinSwitch, Kuber, and Inter. We appreciate the support.
Welcome back. Let's jump into the conversation. There are two parts to this. One is how it was grown, which we'll get into. The second part is how it was preserved, how it was ripened, how it was transported. And, there are so many questions around that. What chemicals were used, like you said, in the ripening chambers?
Yeah.
What is the way in which that this apple was preserved? What is the way in this banana was? Those are some of the things that are, I think, question marks also in my life and in the listener's life, right? What are important learnings that people can, pick up and say that these are the kinds of fruits I should worry about? These are the kinds of fruits that I should not probably worry about.
Yeah, so I think, in general, things like watermelon, muskmelon, guava, papaya, etc., right? I mean, you harvest them right out of the tree/plant, and then you consume them, right? Like a mango is typically, goes through some sort of ripening before it actually reaches the end consumer, right? So, and both for a grower and a supply chain player, irrespective of who it is actually, and the end consumer, the intricacy in fruit is that till you cut it open, you don't know, right? And a mango which looks perfectly fine from outside, when you cut it open, you may find that it's turned black in some corner, or there's a worm, etc., right? So there is a great deal of science that can be used, that is used to ensure that you take all the care possible to ensure that, the right quality goes out, it's not rotten, all of that. But in fruits, until you cut open, you never know. So as a consumer, I think, today, an average consumer honestly is fairly well nuanced, and therefore they're also asking the right questions to the choices that they're using to buy their fruits and vegetables, right? So today there are plethora of choices, starting from walking into a market, which today people may be concerned about, to a kirana store, to a modern trade store, to any of the online players who are buying fruits and vegetables, to any of the new age boutique brands that are upcoming in the fruits and vegetable space, right? So the choices are unlimited. A good set of the population today is actually asking most of these channels as to when was it grown, how was it grown, when did it come to your shop, how was it handled during the supply chain. And that's where a lot of the question today is going unanswered because of the extremely unorganized nature of the supply chain, which today a lot of agri-tech companies are trying to solve for in bringing in this transparency and traceability into the supply chain.
So should consumers be asking these questions? And who should they be asking to?
Consumers are asking the questions. Like, for example, if you look at our app, or if you look at our social media, that's what we are trying to highlight and showcase, that it doesn't have to be opaque, right? I mean, your supply chain. So for a good 5 to 6 years, traceability in fruits and vegetables stopped at just telling where the vegetable or fruit was grown, right? The equally important, if not more important, was how was it grown, right? So at least a core part of Deep Rooted is to sort of bring in that philosophy, the set of practices that we follow, and bring it out in the open, right? Like, for example, a common way of avoiding to spray pesticides is to use plants as a natural deterrent for pests for your main crop, right? I mean, it is science. right? So you grow along the border or the periphery of the field. You grow certain kind of plants which naturally act as a deterrent from the pests actually entering that, right? So there are a certain set of key practices that you can follow. And to your question, maybe coming back, are consumers asking? Yes, consumers are definitely asking these questions, right? Because as I said, for a good 5-6 years, traceability stopped at where was it being grown. You could not, everyone had a QR code where they could scan and then, see some farm location. But beyond that, yeah, there was a void as to whether it was truly grown there, whether it was grown in the right manner.
Avinash, somebody going to the road and buying vegetables and fruits from there, how will that person ask those kind of questions? Who will they
No, I
answer? What?
mean, it has not percolated to that all the channels uniformly. But I'm telling most consumers today, right, are actually asking these questions, right? Especially when it comes to fruits, vegetables, they are questioning the promises and claims being made by some of these players, right? When they call it organic, when they call it hydroponic, when they call it greenhouse grown, when they call it residue free or pesticide free, right? There are a lot of terms and terminologies that brands, companies are using, where if you scratch the surface, you really don't know behind those claims, how are those claims substantiated in a way, right? So one of the core elements of at least what we are trying to do is actually break the myth and lay it out, telling what does organic mean, what does hydroponic mean, what does greenhouse mean, what is the advantage of growing that, how are we sort of growing it in a contamination free manner, or how are we growing it in a residue free manner. We are showcasing the entire farm to home supply chain videos, where at every point in time we are showcasing how it is being preserved, at what time is it harvested, what time does it reach our warehouse versus a consumer's house, right? So I think the underlying movement that I said about people being extremely conscious about what they are eating, I think it is now beginning to percolate, and at some point in time, it will reach a certain mature level. Is anyone and everyone asking the question? The answer is probably no. But is there an underlying interest, curiosity? Even in this category, to go a couple of steps beyond and understand things like sustainability, that is a phenomenon that we are clearly seeing in a certain demographic who are our consumers, right? Like people in the 25 to 45-year-old bracket, sort of fit the mold that we are telling, who are conscious about either what they are eating or their kids at home or their parents at home are eating, and have embraced, let's say, non-traditional choices for buying fruits and vegetables, and are asking these questions. So probably the younger generation, right? I mean, they are the most conscious of the generation across categories, right? Things like buying refurbished electronics, and in fashion, understanding the sustainability element of it, like organic cotton and things like that, have already come up in fashion. This is a category which is much more earthy and raw and closer to nature, and the same sort of mindset, like again, it's not a top of the mind category, low involvement category, but even there people are actually wanting to understand what of it, how of it, today.
Lovely. Avinash, how can people find out more about what you do in Deep Rooted?
Yeah, so I think we have a fairly so we have, for especially audience in Bangalore and Hyderabad, they can go to the Play Store or the App Store and download our app. Deep Space Rooted is what they'll have to search for. We also have an e-commerce website. People can go to deep-rooted.co. They can read about the brand, the journey, the philosophy, the vision that with which we are working on. Would also urge consumers in these two cities to give a try and experience for themselves, and not just go by what I'm telling, because practice what you preach. So just don't go by what I'm telling. Please feel free to try our range of produce. So we are practically a one-stop shop for F&B needs of a consumer.
Lovely. Superb. Avinash, thank you so much for coming on the Habit Coach podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So that was Avinash from Deep Rooted. This was part 1. Make sure you come and join us for part 2, where we now deep dive into the whole meaning of what hydroponics is. What is organic? How should you start thinking about this? What is the journey that you can get on and become more aware of the kind of food that you're eating? Because ultimately, the fruits and vegetables that we eat are what is going to be making our body, our health, and everything that we want, the vitality that we want to live with. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to reach out to me, I am Ashtin Doc on Twitter and Instagram. You can find lots more information on my website, awesome180.com, or check out different content on my YouTube channel called AWESOME180. That's Awesome180.
உங்களுக்கு தமிழ் கதைகள் கேட்க ரொம்ப பிடிக்குமா? அப்படின்னா கதை பாட்காஸ்ட்ல ஒவ்வொரு திங்கட்கிழமை, புதன்கிழமை, வெள்ளிக்கிழமைகளை வெளியாகிற தமிழ் கிளாசிக்கல் நாவல்களை உங்களுக்கு புரியுற தமிழ்ல கேட்டுக்கிட்டே இருங்க. இத IVM பாட்காஸ்ட் ஹோஸ்ட் பண்றாங்க. கேளுங்க கேட்டுக்கிட்டே இருங்க.
A wise man once said, traveling, it makes you speechless, then turns you into a storyteller.
Well, listen to such travel stories and experiences exploring India on the Musafir Stories with us, Saif and Faiza.
Catch us on the IVM website, app, or wherever you get your podcasts from.